Hello, welcome back to the channel. Today we will look at Robert Harris's book Fatherland from 1992. It is a masterclass in the genre of alternative history, combining the taut pacing of a political thriller with the unsettling implications of a world reshaped by Nazi victory. It is 470 pages long, and let me tell you, you won't be able to put it down once you start it. It is that good. The book is set in 1964 and it imagines a German Reich that stretches from the Atlantic to the Urals. In the book, Germany is preparing for a historic rapprochement with the United States, led by President Joseph P. Kennedy. Against this geopolitical backdrop, Harris places a single, seemingly ordinary crime, the discovery of a corpse on the banks of the Havel River in Berlin. The protagonist, Detective Xavier March of the Kriminalpolizei, begins by investigating what happens to be a routine death. Yet his inquiries gradually uncover evidence of a state conspiracy to erase the last surviving witnesses of the Wannsee Conference, the infamous 1942 meeting where the Holocaust was formally coordinated. What begins as a police procedural evolves into a high-stakes confrontation with the foundations of Nazi power, culminating in revelations that threaten to destabilize the Reich's carefully constructed lies. At its heart, Fatherland is about the fragility of truth in the face of authoritarian control. Harris demonstrates how history itself becomes a battleground. The regime's survival depends not only on political dominance, but also on suppressing the memory of its greatest crime. Detective March's pursuit of facts becomes symbolic of a moral struggle against forgetting, echoing real-world debates about Holocaust denial and the manipulation of collective memory. Equally striking is Harris's evocation of everyday life in a victorious Nazi Germany. The novel's Berlin is both familiar and alien. Autobahns crisscross the continent. A monumental Germania rises from architect Speer's blueprints, and citizens live under the constant gaze of the Gestapo. This backdrop gives the narrative an unsettling plausibility, as Harris grounds speculative history in meticulous research. Now I'm going to read you a very short chapter, and this is toward the end of the book when March finds or retrieves rather documents that trace the activities regarding the Wannsee Conference. And this chapter is actually it's basically what Harris does. Sometimes he puts those documents in the book and treats it as regular text. So essentially this document is an affidavit sworn by Wilhelm Stuckart, the State Secretary, Interior Ministry. On Sunday, 21st December 1941, the Interior Ministry's advisor on Jewish affairs, Dr. Bernhard Losener, made an urgent request to see me in private. Dr. Losener arrived at my home in a state of extreme agitation. He informed me that his subordinate, the Assistant Advisor on Racial Affairs, Dr. Werner Felcher, had heard from a fully reliable source, a friend, that the 1,000 Jews recently evacuated from Berlin had been massacred in the Rumbly Forest in Poland. He further informed me that his feelings of outrage were sufficient to prevent him from continuing his present employment in the ministry, and he therefore requested to be transferred to other duties. I replied that I would seek clarification on this matter. The following day, at my request, I visited Obergruppenführer Reinhard Heydrich in his office in Prinz Albrechtstraße. The Obergruppenführer confirmed that Dr. Felscher's information was correct and pressed me to discover its source, as such breaches of security could not be tolerated. He then dismissed his adjutant from the room and said that he wished to speak to me on a private basis. He informed me that in July he had been summoned to the Führer's headquarters in East Prussia. The Führer had spoken to him frankly in the following terms. He had decided to resolve the Jewish question once and for all. The hour had arrived. He could not rely upon his successors having the necessary will or the military power which he now commanded. He was not afraid of the consequences. People presently revered the French Revolution, but who now remembered the thousands of innocents who died? Revolutionary times were governed by their own laws. When Germany had won the war, nobody would ask afterwards how we did it. Should Germany lose the immortal struggle, at least those who had hoped to profit from the defeat of National Socialism would be wiped out. It was necessary to remove the biological basis of Judaism once and for all, otherwise the problem would erupt to plague further generations. That was the lesson of history. Obergruppenführer Heydrich stated further that the necessary powers to enable him to implement this Führer order had been granted to him by Reichsmarschall Göring on the 31st of July 1941. These matters would be discussed at the forthcoming interdepartmental conference. In the meantime, he urged me to use whatever means I considered necessary to discover the identity of Dr. Felscher's source. This was a matter of the highest security classification. I thereupon suggested that, in view of the grave issues involved, it would be appropriate, from a legal point of view, to have the Führer order placed in writing. Obergruppenführer Heydrich stated that such a course was impossible due to political considerations, but that if I had any reservations, I should take them up with the Führer personally. Obergruppenführer Heydrich concluded our meeting by remarking in a jocular manner that we should have no cause for concern on legalistic grounds, considering that I was the Reich's chief legal draftsman and he was the Reich's chief policeman. I hereby swear that this is a true record of our conversation, based upon notes taken by myself that same evening. Signed, Wilhelm Stuckart, attorney, dated 4th of June 1942, Berlin. Witnessed, Joseph Buhler, attorney. Harris writes with clarity and precision, favouring brisk pacing over elaborate prose. The thriller format ensures accessibility, but some critics argue that this comes at the cost of deeper psychological development of the characters. Nonetheless, March's quiet disillusionment and the journalist Charlie Maguire's outsider perspective provide compelling human anchors amid the vast political machinery of the Reich. Upon its release, Fatherland was widely praised and became an international bestseller. It has since been recognized not only as an engaging thriller, but also as a serious contribution to alternate history literature. To fully appreciate Fatherland, it's worth comparing it to Philip K. Dick's The Man in the High Castle. We've recently reviewed that. Both novels imagine a world where the Axis powers won World War II, yet they approach this premise with different narrative strategies and philosophical concerns. While Fatherland focuses on a tightly constructed political thriller set in a single, plausible, alternate 1964 Germany, The Man in the High Castle presents a fragmented, multi-perspective exploration of a divided America under Japanese and Nazi rule. Dick's novel is less concerned with suspenseful plotting and more with the instability of reality itself. His characters question not only political authority but also the very nature of history and truth, symbolized by the enigmatic alternate history novel within the novel called The Grasshopper Lies Heavy. Harris grounds his narrative in meticulous historical research, offering a chilling, believable portrait of a victorious Reich. Dick, in contrast, leans into his trademark metaphysical concerns, suggesting that reality is layered, fragile, and possibly illusory. Where Harris warns of the dangers of forgetting historical truth, Dick raises the unsettling possibility that truth itself is contingent, shifting according to perspective and interpretation. Yet the two novels converge in their insistence that alternate history is not mere speculation. Both works demand that readers confront moral responsibility. Harris by foregrounding the suppression of the Holocaust, and Dick by exploring complicity and resistance under oppressive regimes. Together they demonstrate the power of alternate history to illuminate not only what might have been, but also the ethical stakes of our own world. In 1994, HBO adapted Fatherland into a television film directed by Christopher Manal, starring Rutger Hauer as Xavier March and Miranda Richardson as Charlotte Maguire. The adaptation condenses the complex narrative into a 2-hour format, inevitably simplifying some of the novel's intricacies. The film's production design deserves particular credit, from the imposing monuments of architect Speer's Germania to the oppressive presence of the Gestapo. The visual world evokes the plausibility that Harris instilled in his prose. However, the adaptation was met with mixed reviews. Some critics praised its ambition and atmospheric qualities, while others argued that it lacked the narrative depth and thematic complexity of the novel. The constraints of television at the time meant that the film leaned more heavily on suspense and spectacle, leaving less room for the philosophical reflections on history, memory, and truth that define the book. Personally, I only saw about 5 minutes of the movie because, in my opinion, the acting was terrible. Also, I tend not to want to watch a movie to ruin my experience of reading a book. There is a link in the description box below for those who are interested in watching the movie. What I ended up watching instead was a German movie on the Wannsee Conference. In 1984, West German television produced the Wannsee Conference. Unlike more conventional war dramas, the film confines itself almost entirely to the villa by Lake Wannsee near Berlin, where on January 20th, 1942, senior Nazi officials convened to coordinate what would become the final solution, quote unquote. At just under 90 minutes, the film unfolds as a chamber play, a handful of powerful men seated around the table discussing logistics, jurisdictional disputes, and methods of extermination with unnerving calm. The German actor Dietrich Mattausch portrays Reinhard Heydrich, who chaired the meeting, while Gerd Böckmann appears as Adolf Eichmann, the man tasked with overseeing deportations and killings. Their performances capture the chilling banality of evil men speaking in bureaucratic shorthand, sipping coffee and toasting cognac, all while finalizing a plan for industrial-scale genocide. The dialogue itself is drawn closely from the surviving Wannsee protocols, lending the film both documentary weight and a sense of horrifying authenticity. Now, that is an informative piece of film, in my opinion. You not only learn about history, but about the cruelty that humans are capable of. The style is deliberately stark and minimalist. There is no dramatic score, no violence shown on screen, only the quiet horror of bureaucrats calmly planning mass murder. This makes the film especially powerful. By stripping away spectacle, it forces viewers to confront the reality that genocide can be organized not just by fanatics, but by civil servants and functionaries following administrative procedure. The movie Wannsee-Konferenz remains highly regarded in Germany, both as a historical dramatization and as an educational tool. It is remembered for its historical fidelity, its restraint, and its ability to convey the enormity of the Holocaust through the chilling normality of a single meeting. In many ways, it set the tone for later screen portrayals of the event, and it stands as a stark counterpoint to Robert Harris's Fatherland, where Harris imagines a Reich that has successfully hidden the truth. Schirk's film insists that we confront the moment when that truth was conceived in the language of bureaucracy and efficiency. Fatherland succeeds because it intertwines suspenseful storytelling with profound historical reflection. It forces readers to confront the unsettling questions. What would the world look like if truth were erased by design? How easily might ordinary people adapt to extraordinary evil if it became normalized? In doing so, Harris demonstrates that alternate history is not escapist speculation, but a powerful tool for probing the moral stakes of the past and present. Fatherland is essential reading for those interested in alternate history, political thrillers, or the enduring lessons of the Second World War. It is both entertaining and intellectually provocative, a novel that lingers long after its final pages. I give this book a 5 out of 5. If you've enjoyed this episode, be sure to like and maybe subscribe, and I'll see you in my next video. Bye bye.